I think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on. I personally believe that there is a sea change in corporate governance that's happening. It's more reversion to the mean as opposed to some brand new path that we are all plowing. The way I would frame it is about 100 years ago, literally, well, maybe the 1800s, history lesson for those that missed law school, New Jersey was the place that you were going to get incorporated. It was the gold standard. Everybody knew you got incorporated in New Jersey. Why would you even think about it? And because of certain political interests and other things, New Jersey started relaxing standards for people to bring lawsuits and to second guess directors' decisions, and for businesses to, allow fairness to overcome, or perceived fairness to overcome certainty in business. And as you can imagine, the people that owned the companies didn't like that and said, we need to find an alternative. And Delaware was all too happy to provide that. And so Delaware adopted significant changes to their common law. The judges helped this, and statutorily, and businesses pretty quickly migrated there. And the last 100 years has been Delaware's game. In the last few years, I'd say since 2019, if you all know the Bluebell case, Marchand v. Barnard, and then a little company here in Austin, Tesla, Tornetta v. Musk, there has been less certainty when directors make decisions that it will be respected. In Tornetta v. Musk, it was a shareholder that had 9 shares who brought a lawsuit against a $56 billion pay package and was able to get it rejected twice. They finally fixed it with a very, very, very narrow opinion last month, but those kinds of things can happen, and they will happen again. And so Nevada and Texas are trying to provide an alternative where when directors like you make decisions, you know what the rules of the road are, so that if you stay on them, they will be respected, and you don't have to spend years in litigation, and you don't have to air the corporation's dirty laundry. And hopefully, with the changes that have come up in the last couple of years in the Texas statute and the new business court, we'll see if that happens. But that's what we're here to talk about today. It's early innings, though. So we are very, very lucky to have the Chief Justice here to give us some of his insights. So maybe I'll start and ask you kind of, what do you think the point of these new business courts were in your mind? What were they created in order to solve, and what's the purpose?
Sure. Well, some of it was to catch up. About half the states already had them, and it was a business advantage to have a business court because of most other Texas judges are generalists. I remember one of the reasons I became a judge was after a few hearings, mostly in rural areas, but sometimes in the big cities, you'd go in on a big case and the judge hadn't read anything. The judge was not going to read anything. The judge was not going to make any decision unless somebody forced him to. And a lot of times I just, I had one judge one time in Harris County say, do you know how often, I'm trying to get a summary judgment granted. I said, you know how often summary judgments get reversed? Oh, okay, well, just cut to the chase and reverse, and I'll try to get it fixed later. But it's, in complex business matters, you want somebody that's going to read this stuff. And the reason lawyers like Travis make so much money is it is really boring stuff in corporate law. It is a lot of boring regulations and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's not that many people with the patience to do it. And so how do you get judges to do that? And so the part of the idea, and this has been 10 years or maybe more, they've been trying to get the business court set up. It is a single court, but it's 5 divisions with some other divisions to be added later. But mainly the big cities right now, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. And you can file a case there. It's got to be a certain kind of case. It's major business, very detailed jurisdictional statute, but basically it's major corporate, major business, class action, stuff like that, that frankly a lot of trial judges are not really up to. Some trial judges, regular courts, are perfectly up to it, but probably not the majority. And plus, as a trial judge, you've got all these other things. And the amazing thing is the people, everybody thinks their case ought to go first in line. And I don't blame them, because otherwise, year after year, I was trial judge for 11 years, and year after year, especially in personal injury cases, the insurance companies would not pay until they saw the jurors coming into the courtroom for the trial. Because a lot of times it'd take 3, 4, 5 years. Why would you settle any earlier than that? And so they all want to be at the front of the line, and I don't know how many statutes there are, maybe Tom Phillips would, but there's a long string of statutes saying the following cases shall get preference in going to trial. Workers' comp, and just all these routine things. And so one of the main things is to have a court dedicated to these cases that's going to get judges who are going to read them, and then give them enough time without all the other stuff with everybody nipping at their heels, so they can focus on it. And then somebody figured out, as it looked like that was going to happen in 2020, in the 2023 session of the legislature, somebody started saying, well, where are you going to appeal to? Well, the same place they're appealing to now that is also tied up with lots of other things. And so that's why my court was created, statewide jurisdiction. They can hear appeal for all of these. And so that's basically the structure.
And so, like, for people that don't do litigation all the time, when you have a case, to what the Chief Justice was saying, you obviously, especially in business disputes, you want that case to go very quickly. That's what Delaware has been selling for years. The Delaware courts have gotten a lot slower because there are so many cases that they are hearing. And so it's not like every single case that you have is going to get decided in 1 month or 2 months or 6 months. And so that speed is another thing that the courts are trying to compete with. But I guess this is the point where I point out that just because your company is in Austin and your headquarters is in Austin doesn't mean that your fiduciary duty cases are going to be heard in Austin. If you incorporated your startup or your venture capital fund or your public company in Delaware, and you probably have an exclusive forum provision in your charter that says all cases are going to be heard in Delaware, right? So part of what we've been doing is making it so that we've got the courts and we've got the law, and people will choose to incorporate here in Texas. So for example, Elon Musk has said over and over, never incorporate in Delaware. But Andreessen Horowitz has said, we will not incorporate another fund or any of our portfolios in Delaware. They're based in California, so they're choosing Nevada, but they've talked to several of the Texas VC funds, and many of them are saying we're going to use Texas only. So that means everybody's insurance premiums are going down, and we're done, right?
Yeah. So the business of insurance is not a business that looks too much at the future. Instead, it reacts to the data that it actually ends up paying claims out on. So we're sort of at the moment where most of the market is considered to be kind of at the bottom in terms of price per million for large publicly traded companies. It's been a journey down over the last, say, 3-4 years, and rather significant pricing decreases, which should make everybody happy. But if you're expecting any more of that, that's probably not likely. The other area is that, consolidation's not only occurring in maybe your industries, but it's actually also occurring in the insurance industry. So you're looking at a scenario where your lead carrier, for example, pretty good chance if you're a decent-sized publicly traded company, you're led by AIG or Chubb. The rumor in the current domain of our world is that those two companies could merge, and there's great reasons historically for that to happen. Evan Greenberg, who's the chairman of Chubb, has a father by the name of Hank Greenberg, who built AIG. Now he sits at a company called Star. They're also in the rumor mill that after after Chubb and AIG merge, it would be amazing if Star ended up buying them all. Yeah. So as you consider, whatever you do in your day business, do know that the consolidations that are taking place are not only in your space. They're also in the space that actually may lead your directors and officers coverage. That could have a big impact on price per million. That could have a huge impact on what coverages carriers will be willing to offer. And so the Dexit scenario represents a once-in-a-century type of opportunity, not unlike the New Jersey migration to Delaware, to be strategic, not defensive, but to look at the optionality, the certainty, and the environment of being able to actually maybe even have a business headquartered in the same state that you're incorporated in. So.
Yeah. And if you listen to the governor and the legislators who have been supporting these statutory changes that actually set up the court and the like, the goal here is not to create this Wild West where corporations can do anything that they want and nobody can ever get sued and there's nothing to ever worry about, and we'll have this anarchy of capitalism, right? That's not what we're trying to accomplish here. The idea is we want to attract business to Texas. We want to attract jobs to Texas. You've seen Oracle come, you've seen Chevron come, McKesson, others, they're all moving their headquarters. Many of them already have their operations here because it's cheaper to operate in Texas and the regulatory environment is great. But there's a lot more that goes into it, and one of the things that they found that businesses have been asking for is a better court system than what they had in Delaware and a better statutory system of kind of the director's responsibilities and what happens when things go wrong.
Okay. So if you think about insurance, it's really part of the financial capital segment. So it's when you look at the D&O price, you're outside of the legal framework, you're getting a real-time perspective of the cost of risk perception versus the legal theory on what that will look like. And I don't expect dramatic changes in D&O pricing, but I must tell you that right now many of our clients are looking at moving. We have a client that isn't all that. It's not a tech company. It's not a new company. We could not write their D&O in Delaware. We had to pick a different venue jurisdiction to be able to get them to have directors and officers coverage. The frictional expense that legal occurs and everybody else occurs, that ends up being paid by somebody. So insurance carriers are absolutely looking at the cost of litigation based on venue. So back again to kind of the premise in risk, which is if you're going to risk manage something, you would like to have more optionality. You don't want to be confined to your options. So I think that'll be a key piece of measured by all of you as you evaluate this option, not defensively, but strategically.
So I'll give the Chief Justice the last word on this before we cut to the Chatham House portion.
Which word is that?
Well, what
Is it going to work?
Maybe I'll ask you this. Yeah. Part of the issue in Delaware is that you had judges that are appointed for 12 years.
Right.
And the idea is if they're appointed for 12 years, it's almost like a lifetime position, and they're not going to be influenced by changes in governor or, like in Texas, some of the lower courts, the judges are just constantly running for election, almost like federal congressmen, right? That's what they do. And they don't actually have to be lawyers in order to get elected as a judge. So if you have a traffic ticket in, Brownsville, like it could just be a local former city councilman, for example. How Do you think that the Texas system right now, where we have the judges I think it's 2 years for
Right.
the business court.
Appointed by the governor.
But they're appointed, right? So
Appointed by the governor.
talk to us about that.
Confirmed by the Senate, and they're up every 2 years. And as somebody who's been, this November will be my 7th general election, and one of them was actually not contested. The other 6 were. And something about knowing you could be kicked out that focuses your attention on what you do at work. And knowing that you can be replaced just the same as anybody in your businesses too. There's a lot of people like to be judge, and people are looking at what you're doing, but it's the people that are all the first appointments were really smart. These are eager beavers. These are people that can't wait to get their hands on a case. It's not always a good thing, but generally speaking, that's a good thing, because then they'll make a decision and decide the case, and then it comes to us, and so there's a lot of things that you people deal with that you just want to know what the answer is. Even if you lose, if you just tell us what the answer is without spending $1 million and 5 years finding out, that'd be a blessing.
We charge a lot more than $1 million
I know,
over 5 years.
It's over 5 years. I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like any system. If you're thinking, well, gosh, that sounds, but what happened if Texas goes blue? Well, I suppose that's possible. But, and anything could happen in the current political climate. But the fact of the matter is the state's been solidly red for 30 years now. And there are actually more people moving in from Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi than are moving in from California or Oregon. So, and the reason is because they're moving here for jobs. They want to move here to work, to be able to afford a house, to be able to, get good schools and all the things that just normal people want. And that's really the goal behind all of this business court stuff. It's not just to get a bunch of corporate lawyers here, so we can be like Delaware, and the biggest business is corporate lawyers. It's the biggest business ought to be business, because that's with 33 million people, and demographers say by 2050 we'll pass California. We'll be the biggest. We'll have 50 million people. We'll be the biggest, most populous state in the union, and we're going to have to build a lot of roads and a lot of schools and a lot of other stuff, and we're going to have to do it right. But that's the people that are moving here are the kind of people that can do that. So that's what the business courts are a part of that system. But what you do is a big part of it too.